Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BT's Fly Tying Friday. Tonight we have John Wright talking to us about tying and fishing tenkara. And our weekly tip, we have question marks there. Well, in actuality, we figured out what we were going to do a little earlier, but we want to keep it as a surprise. We got something really hot for you. Quit laughing, Gretchen. Well, maybe not quite that hot, but it's warm. It's very warm. Anyway, we're the Beaties from Boise, Idaho. And tonight, we're going to be featuring John Wright from Nebraska, Healing Waters in Nebraska. And our tip comes from one of the fellows from Healing Waters in Nebraska as well. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, John Wright retired 22 years as a Air Force pilot to his current job in the computer and IT industries. He has fished for more than 50 years, but has only tied flies since 1977. He started tenkara fly fishing 2 years ago and has been hooked ever since, pun intended. He will share with us the fun and simplicity of tenkara, both as a fly fishing method, but also as a simple way of tying flies. Don't blink. These flies are so fast, they literally jump out of the vise. John, it's all yours.
Thank you, Al. You're going to spotlight me because I don't see it.
Yeah, you are.
You're
Spotlighted. Yeah.
Okay. First off, thank you for inviting me. I've never had a chance to tie in front of an audience of this import before. So if I make a few mistakes and I don't sound quite right, it's because I'm extraordinarily nervous. So I got into tenkara quite by accident about, I guess it was 7 years ago now. I was teaching a fly tying class or a rod building class for Project Healing Waters. And for some reason, I was surfing the net trying to find fly rod building kits. And I came across a site called Tenkara Customs, and they were selling something called a Tenkara blank. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So I went out and did some research and thought it would be something I'd like to look into. So I bought the kit and built the rod, and I spent that summer fishing with the tenkara rod. I didn't know too much about it, but it seemed like a lot of fun. And I enjoyed it for the summer, but at the end of the summer, I decided, well, kind of like Al, it really wasn't my cup of tea. So it went up on the shelf and it stayed there for about 5 years until about 2 years ago. I needed to find a simple way to fly fish. And that's when I pulled out the old tenkara rod again and started doing some research. And what I found was the Japanese believe in a very simple way of fly fishing, and simplicity is the key to tenkara. When I go out fly fishing with a tenkara rod, I carry a rod, a fly line, and a hook, which is a fly. And when my fly box looks like this. Let me see if you can see that or not, but that's all I carry with me. 3 patterns, and that's it. And the 3 flies I want to demonstrate, tie for you tonight, are the 3 flies that I carry. The first fly is the Frank Sawyer killer bug, and it's not a Japanese fly at all. It's an English fly, and it's a very simple fly to tie, and that's in keeping right with the philosophy of tenkara. So let me show you the materials. That's all there is to it. The yarn is Jamison's Spindrift in a color oyster, and the thing on the right is the coils from an electric motor. When Frank tied his, he salvaged the coils off of an electric motor, and he robbed his wife's yarn box for yarn. And the yarn that he robbed was called Chadwick's 277, I believe, which is no longer available. So the Jameson Spindrift in color oyster is the closest substitute that we've found for it. It's become an extremely popular fly with tenkara fishermen because it is simple and it's extraordinarily effective. Like I say, it's a very simple fly. There's only two materials, and I like to use simple red wire. And I get this wire at, I believe, Hobby Lobby over in the jewelry section. It's a 24 gauge red wire. I like to start the wire fairly close to the eye, and then a couple of turns back behind it, and then trim off just a pair of fingernail clippers. Okay, next thing we're going to tie in is this Jamison's yarn. When I tie this in, I don't tie it in the same way we would tie an American fly or a Western fly. I tie it in with the long end to the right. I'll show you why in just a minute. So I'm going to tighten that down. I'm going to lift it up, and I'm going to come back and put a couple of wraps here. just to give me a little bit of a head, and then to come back behind it, and that secures it down really well. And I can trim this off right here. Now, I'm going to use the rotary function on my vise, and I'm going to start rotating my vise. And I like to rotate the vise because it allows me to get a very nice level layer of wire on the hook. And it also lets me do it fairly quickly. Now I want the wire to be tight wraps, because the wire, and the reason that it's red, is we want the wire color to bleed through the yarn when it gets wet. Now this fly, I've been told, can simulate a lot of different insects, not the least of which is a scud. Now all we have to do is wrap. Wrap the yarn to the back. Then a couple of wraps around the yarn. Cut it off close. One more wrap. And a half hitch. And you'll notice that there's a little bit of red on the back, little flag, little tag, and a little tag on the front. And that's what it's supposed to be. And that is the Frank Sawyer killer bug tied the way Frank tied it, or at least so I have been told.
Fred Dupre is asking, what size of hook are you using?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm using a size 10 TMC 100 dry fly hook. Now, I normally don't tie it on this size, but I wanted to get it fairly big so that you could at least see it fairly well on camera. But you can use any size hook. I usually tie it down to a size 16, and I use scud hooks and nymph hooks as much as I use dry fly and wet fly hooks. So, and they all seem to work equally well. Anything else? I said they were simple and they're fast to tie. You can tie a dozen of those in probably soft tackle before. It's no different than a soft tackle fly, except that you tie the hackle facing forward. Now the thread, you can use any thread you want to use, any color thread you want to use. This happens to be black number 70 denier UTC thread. Again, start forward, then come back a couple of wraps and trim it. I like to tie it in the top of the hook, a couple of soft wraps, and come forward. Now I like to bring the thread behind the hackle. That helps it stand up just a little bit. And I think I'm going to get one more wrap out of this. Yeah.
I'm noticing it looks like you're wrapping the hackle from the front of the hook, and then each turn is behind the previous.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm doing now. And thank you for reminding me to tell you all that. Yeah, you run all Tenkara flies run from the front to the back. So everything gets kind of reversed. There. And now the hard part. You wrap the body until you got the body that you want, the profile you want. Basically a tapered body, but the Tenkara fly doesn't need a lot of body to it. These flies are designed to be fished just below the surface or about mid column in the water. And what happens is when you first start fishing them, they'll fish just below the surface and they kind of act like an emerger. And then after you fished it for a while, it's gotten wet, they'll sink and they'll start going down into the current a little bit, or into the water column a little bit more. Okay. Half hitch on that. And that is a Sakasa Kabari. catch a lot of fish. I'm out on the water. I'll probably catch maybe in a day, maybe only catch 30, 40 fish. So I can usually do that on 2 or 3 flies.
That's just awful that you don't catch any fish at all. I mean, oh my God.
Well, yeah, but you see, my fish are a lot different than your fish. My 30 or 40 are only about 4-inch bluegills. And in fact, that's what the Tenkara is designed for. If you look at the literature, the Tenkara rod is actually designed by the Japanese for fishing the very small mountain streams that they've got in Japan. Now, the peacock herl, I find over at Hobby Lobby. We don't have a fly shop here in Omaha. I'll get a piece of feather off of the hackle head, cut off a little bit here, and tie it in exactly the same way. Now I'm going to tie a little bit of a head on this one, not much of one. And again, bring the thread back behind the hackle. And again, we're going to wrap this as we did the last fly, front to back. And I think it makes a little nicer looking fly for us mortals. I don't think the fish cares. There we go. Let's tie that in. And now, just as we did with the other one, we build a body. And with this silk, it's pretty fine. It takes a while, as you can see, to build a body on it. I'm not going to build it all the way up. I'm just going to set it up here, and we'll finish it with a little half hitch. And there is the Takayama Sakasa Kabari fly. Now, this fly I've had very good luck on just about every fish I fish for. It's a very effective fly.
We're going to get the hot part of the tip out right now. For those of you that don't recognize it, there's my heat gun. Or you can use a hair dryer for this particular tip. Now we're going to do a review before we go into the actual tip itself. And if you recall, a couple of 3 weeks ago, we used heat to show you how to take the crinkles out of the yarn. You know, we just pull the yarn apart, and that has all these crinkles, and we can straighten that out, and I'll show you how to do that right now. If you'll hold that up, Gushy. All right, we're just holding that up, and then now we're going to turn on our heat gun. And now I'm going to bring that back, and I want you to notice that it's perfectly straight now.
Wow.
Pretty cool, right? Well, we're going to go a little further into the weeds on this for right now. I'll keep this heat gun out because our other friend from Omaha, who isn't on this tonight with us, but dear friend Mike Kelly, also a military veteran, does a lot of work with Project Healing Waters, and that's how we met John tonight, as well as Mike Kelly. And Mike shared this tip about using a heat gun to do some wonderful things to Squirrel Tail. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. But Mike Kelly says he can't take credit for the tip. It actually came from a fellow by the name of Davey McPhail, who is very well known on the YouTube world. He's from Wales and a commercial fly tire. With the name Davey McPhail showing up, anybody who's spent any time on YouTube has run across his great fly tying presentations. He's one of the masters out there in the YouTube world. We long admired his stuff even before we started our own YouTube channel. But anyway, back to the process. Heat on our materials. We're going to talk about squirrel tail now. All right, here we have two squirrel tails. They look a little bit different though, don't they? You got the one on the left here, and then you got the one on the right. This one is all nicely spread out, and I want you to notice that all along the sides here, how the barring lines up so nice. It's really particularly noticeable when you flip it over. Okay, that's pretty cool. So how did these two get to be so different? Well, actually, this is a younger squirrel in my right hand and an older squirrel here, so the fibers are longer. Now I'm going to turn it over and get the other side. Now I want you to notice here, like I told you, this is a broken tail, so it kind of wiggles quite a bit. Look at the difference in that tail between the heat application area and that wasn't positioned. Now let's take this one that I showed you just a moment ago, and let's see what happens to it when we apply hot air to it. Wow. Sure makes all the colors and barring and everything show up, doesn't it? Quite frankly, I've been thinking about this for a while, but it also got me to thinking, now, what would happen if I were to put this on blank? You fill in the blank. Well, we're going to experiment tonight. I've got a couple of materials, some that I've never touched with this. What will it do to calf tail? Now, Gretchen and I have primo calf tails. I mean, we high graded these from one of the suppliers. It's probably better than anything you'll find in any fly shop. Let me turn on my heat gun. Well, no,
Al, I can see that going into a dubbing loop real easy now.
Oh, Jerry, let me tell you what, I've got so many things going through my mind right at the moment. And as I say, this is the first time that I have done anything on calf tail. Well, I've got some other things we're going to test out for our first time. We all know about putting steam on peacock herl. What happens when I put heat on it? Get ready with the water, Gretch. This fragile stuff may just go up into, I better put it on low. I don't want to put it on high heat. Let's see what happens. Well, I can't say that I think steam is going to have to be the name of the game for at least peacock, at least this kind. But now here's something else that I wanted to show you. I did on this corner shoot one little shot at this piece of hair. I want you to see that this hair has got a curve in it. Goes this way, it comes up like this and makes a turn. Makes a turn, and I did hit it with a little bit of heat here, and I want you to see what happens to this. Talk about straightening out hair. Now, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm going to put it over to the vice camera so you can see that hair that had a cowlick in it, if you will. I want you to see just how nicely that has been straightened out all through here. Down a little lower. There we go. Yeah.
Did you turn the heat level up a little bit on that, or did you keep it on low?
I put that on the higher heat setting instead of the lower heat setting. Okay, now I've got another really bad one over here. And the reason that I could use that is this stuff has got a terrible cowlick in it right here. It's going in a dozen different directions here. I don't know what's going to happen to it. As I say, the only way I've ever used it is I would pull this stuff tight and wrap it around a hook to make a woven body. So it was under tension and didn't make any difference if it had all these curls. Well, let's see what happens. We're going to turn on the heat. Oh my goodness.
Look at that one on the side that's so bad.
Oh my God, look at that. Yeah. Now let me hold this up here now so you can get a better look at it. Boy, those there's some of the cowlicks are still there. It's pretty tough to get rid of, but that really bad, almost 90-degree turn is gone. I'm excited. Get
Doesn't
excited
take
about
much, does it?
all kinds. Okay, the last thing is a bucktail. Let's just take a look and see. This is actually a pretty good bucktail, but it does have a little bit of a curlicue like this. I don't know if you can see it,
Yeah.
but I'm going to see if I can straighten that out a bit. And I can't say that I like what that, it didn't do a heck of a lot for that, but the other hair all turned out pretty good. Okay, I got some homework for you. The calf tail that I had here was really good quality stuff. And I looked through our calf tails, and quite frankly, one of the cool things about being in the fly fishing business is you can get access to some awful good materials. And I didn't have a really bad calf tail in the whole darn bunch, and I must have a couple hundred here. So here's your homework. I know that there's some of you probably bought a calf tail at the fly shop and it was awful kinky and curly. I want to report back via email on how the heat treats that crooked curly hair and see if it straightens it out any. So you've got a homework assignment now. So now, was I wrong about the hot tip, folks?
No, that was good. In fact, I'm wondering whether you could turn it reverse and take a straight piece and make a nice curve in it.
Oh, Jesus, Jerry, don't make
It's a
me.
curling iron.
Al,
Yeah,
have you tried using that curling iron or that hot iron on a golden pheasant crest? Straighten them
Oh.
out a little bit.
I don't know. Let me take off my microphone. I got some right over here. Let's find out. See if we can't start a fire tonight, Jim. Okay, is this what you're talking about, Jim?
Yeah, the crests.
Okay, well, let's pull a crest feather out, get it under the, I'll get it under the, to the side there. I mean, it's
Yeah,
pretty,
yeah.
Yeah,
it's
it's
pretty
too-
tough. So
See
It's
if you
too
can
crooked
straighten
to
it out.
use. Yeah.
let me, I'm not gonna try to hold on to that. Yeah, it might be a lot safer. Jerry, yeah, my good buddy Jerry is looking out for me. This is good. Okay, there we can kind of see it. Let's see what happens here.
Wow,
Well,
works.
All I can
Sure
tell
does.
you guys is it straightened that puppy out just like you wouldn't believe.
Look at that. Oh
That's
my gosh.
It's a good thing I bought a heat gun. When I saw you do that stuff with that yarn, I went and got one the next day.
Oh, did you really? Okay, well, where did you get it? Did you find a better deal than at Harbor Freight?
No, I got it at Harbor Freight.
I'm stunned. I really did not expect to see that. That feather is as straight as can be. And
Yeah,
you
now
also
put
know
it-
that it had a pretty bad curve in it.
Put it someplace to see if it will hold it after a couple, a week or so, because sometimes these feathers will go back. But once you get it on and sell it to somebody,
Yeah, right.
Okay, Jim, it's going to be hanging just like this on that hook right over there. It's your job now to remind me in the next week or so to check it out.
okay?
See if it springs back the way it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna find out. It's hanging up there right now off camera on one of the pegboard displays that right over here beside the fly tying vise. So
Well, that's
You
that's a
just have
lot
to use
quicker.
it. You
It's
have
a
to
lot
tie
quicker
something with
than
it before it
holding
springs back.
It's a lot quicker than holding it over steam, and you don't have the whistling going on.